1991, Super Mario World was released as a pack-in title that came with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Let's pop it in, the old SNES, and give it a try, see how it holds up today. Now, right off the bat, you'll see that this game allows saving data, and that was an awesome welcomed addition to video games. It wasn't very often before the SNES that you didn't have that many titles with saving features, because basically games were played on cartridges. There was no hard drives for these systems, and so the data had to be saved right on the cartridge, which required the use of a battery backup. And it was more expensive to produce games like that. But fortunately, by the time the SNES rolled out, it was becoming more and more common to see games with save features, and that's because the games got more and more complex and required a lot more time to actually beat. And unlike most modern games where you can save the game virtually at any point you want to, the save feature in Super Mario World only allowed you to save when the game deemed it okay to save, which was typically every so many levels or so. You couldn't save it at the end of every level you completed. And this concept was not uncommon in early games with save features. This type of feature where you could save every so often when the game asked you if you wanted to save it or not, or actually accessing a save point, which is slowly dying out in modern video games. The whole concept of a save point. More often in today's games, you'll see something more along the lines of an autosave feature, which was just completely unheard of at this time. Anyhow, back to Super Mario World. As you can see and hear, the graphics and sound are both beautifully rendered, and Nintendo took quite a lot of pride in their Mario franchise at this point. And they were very careful about designing a very well thought out, well-made game. And they certainly delivered with Super Mario World. This game was developed by Nintendo's EAD, which was formerly known as the Research and Development Team Number 4. But Nintendo restructured about this time, and they kind of condensed a lot of their R&D teams into one, known as the EAD. And the head designer for Super Mario 4 for the EAD was Takashi Tezuka, who is by no means a lightweight in the video game world. This guy is, you know, behind a lot of the killer franchises, especially what we see from Nintendo that was considered anything good, basically. I mean, he worked very closely with Shigeru Miyamoto, who is the actual creator of a lot of things Nintendo, like the entire Mario character and franchise, and Zelda, and Donkey Kong, and the like. But it was in fact Tezuka and not Miyamoto who worked on this particular Mario game. Well, enough of a history lesson for the day. Let's talk about gameplay here. And Super Mario World is rock solid with gameplay. Everything functions as it should. The character controls very nicely, and the general gameplay is fairly intuitive as far as a platformer goes. And this game is a platformer, if you haven't noticed. And although the whole concept of a platformer is more or less a dead genre in today's video game world, it was probably one of the most popular genres in the late 80s, early 90s. So it fit right in with what gamers were looking for in a good game at the time. So you control Mario or Luigi, his brother, if you're playing the two-player mode, and you use the D-pad on the Super Nintendo controller to move them about the screen. And you have the 4 round buttons on the Nintendo controller, the Super Nintendo controller, I should say. And they control different types of jumps, and one of them is a fast run button. It's very similar control to the original Super Mario Bros., which was only a 2-button control scheme. And the Super Nintendo controller also featured a left and right bumper button on the top of the controller. And these buttons were utilized in this game, but not very well. All they did was kind of scroll the screen a bit further to the right or left, depending on which one you held down, to change the viewpoint a little bit. It felt, frankly, like a wasted feature. I found myself not really using it at all. But I guess the game designers felt that they should be using every button on the controller because it's there. And this game was a launch title packed in North America and Europe, not in Japan. Japan you had to buy it separately. So I guess they felt that they should utilize buttons on the controller if they're on the controller. But the game, frankly, can be played just as well without using them. Super Mario World is broken down into 72 levels. And this is a considerable expansion from the NES's original Super Mario Bros. That only had 32 levels before you completed the game. There are a various number of power-ups you can get throughout the game. It starts with a mushroom, which is familiar right from the beginning with Super Mario Bros., the first game. The mushroom makes you grow bigger. And aside from the mushroom, there's the fire flower, which I currently have right now. Gives you the ability to shoot fireballs. And there's also a feather in this game, which gives you a cape that allows you to fly. And it functions basically the same way as the raccoon tail did in Super Mario Bros. 3. And much like Super Mario Bros. 3, you navigate an overworld via a map screen, and then you choose which level you'd like to play in particular from that map screen, and it loads up the actual level you're going to play. And each of the world areas ends in a castle, and this is the end boss for the first castle. Oh, and there's something I forgot to mention when I was talking about power-ups earlier. This game was the introduction of the character called Yoshi. And although Yoshi's a character, in Super Mario World I consider him or her, whatever it is, a power-up, because basically that's how the character functions. It functions more as a power-up than it does an actual character in this game. So, Super Mario World is a tremendous, tremendous game. It is fantastic. It really does a good job of showing off the capabilities of the Super Nintendo system, and delivers as a very playable, fun game. Definitely pick it up for your Super Nintendo or your Wii Virtual Console. I'm Dommy from Classic Games Revisited. Until next time.